Welcome to Figure Feedback. My name is Jeremy. And how many of us like to take our hobbies with us wherever we go? In the case of 3D printing, how many of us take printers with us if we go on vacation or go camping or something like that? My guess would be not too many of us, and it's understandable why. But in this video, I want to see roughly what that experience could be like, because Jackery reached out to me and they wanted to provide me with this unit here, which is the HomePower 3600 Plus. It's essentially a big old backup battery that you can use for, well, anything that you can plug stuff into. So I thought, when it comes to 3D printing, could you take something like this with you on like a camping trip or somewhere where you can't just plug into a wall and not only, do some regular 3D printing, but power other things as well that you need, like essential things. So I'm going to tell you about this particular unit, and then I'm also going to be running a print at the exact same time, and we'll get a sense of how much wattage is being used from this printer and how much juice that we're going to have left. So for this, I'm going to be using the Bamboo Lab A1 Mini. So why the A1 Mini? Well, because I would imagine that if you're going to be taking a 3D printer somewhere, you would probably want to bring something that's small and not necessarily something that's heavy and bulky and you have to carry it with two arms. And the Bamboo Lab A1 Mini, still to this day, is the most affordable and best quality small miniature 3D printer that you can get. So the quality is still up there. That's why I'm using it. In addition to the HomePower 3600, Jackery also hooked me up with the Solar Saga 200. These are solar panels and has this cool little sight that you can use to align the black dot to the center of the bullseye so that you can get some maximum sun coverage, so that you can use that to charge the Jackery, or using the cable, you can also just plug in your phone directly to the solar panel and then just charge it from there. And you can combine more than one together to increase your power. So that is pretty cool. So yeah, I'm going to show you how this whole thing works. This is the Jackery right here. And right here on the front, it's got 4 places where you can just plug in a power cable. You can even plug in an appliance right here with this port. And you also have USB-A and USB-C ports right over here. And then over on the left side, you can plug in the charging cable. You can plug this into a wall so you can charge the unit itself. It's got an AC extension port, so you can add even more batteries to this thing. It also has some DC inputs over here as well, and a DC expansion port. So you got everything that you would typically need. And because this thing is so heavy, it also has this handle here that you can extend it, you can tip it, and then you can roll it like a big old heavy piece of luggage, and then just bring it back down when you're done. Also got some handles on the side for if and when you do have to lift this up, but it is quite heavy, let me tell you. All right, so I'm just going to plug in the A1 Mini. I'm going to turn it on by holding this power button. Currently at 99%, and it also tells you on this really simple screen where your input is going into the unit and then what your output is with the things that you have connected to it. I'm just going to hit this AC button so that it will be able to recognize what I have plugged into it, and then I'm just going to turn it on. All right, so now I got the A1 Mini turned on, and before I came out here, I decided to load up something that I think that maybe you would print if you were out and about. It's going to be a carabiner clip, right? So while this just sort of does this thing, I can take a look on this screen here and see what the output is. So currently it's outputting 174 watts of power. Is sort of just going in between like 160 to about 174. We have to remember that it needs to operate the printer, but at the same time, it needs to heat the bed, and it's also going to heat the hot end. So there's going to be some fluctuations in the beginning, but once it starts printing, things should level out, and we'll get a sense of, how much juice it was able to take away from the Jackery while it was printing. Now, one thing that you can do if you decide to pick this up, you can go over to their website I'll leave it linked in the description. You'll be able to get like the current price. There's sales that happen here and there. So whatever price I tell you, it might not be the same by the time that you look at it, but you can go over to the site, and then on that site, they have this little calculator that you can use. You can input how much wattage that you expect to use, and it's going to give you an estimation of how long this will be able to run it for. So for example, I typed in 100 watts, and at 100 watts, they say that this will be able to run for about 25 hours. That is a long time. Now, I don't expect you to be trying to print for 25 hours straight at 100 watts, but hey, at least you know, roughly what it's capable of here. So as I sit here and wait for the A1 Mini to start its print and everything, I'll also tell you that this also has a UPS built into it. That's an uninterruptible power supply. And I think that those are extremely useful, especially with 3D printing, in a place where if your power experiences blips, if your power just goes off for a second or two, not even extended power outages, that's enough to turn off a printer. That's enough to mess up a print, because sometimes those power loss recovery features that some printers have, they don't always work. It might come back on and let you resume the print, but I've experienced things where the distance from the build plate is like way up here and it just starts spaghettifying everywhere. I've had experiences where it would just fail and not continue even though it said it would. But when you have something like a UPS, whenever that power blips, it gets transferred right over to the power unit, in this case the Jackery, so that there is no interruption. The power does not go off. It happens in milliseconds, and you can just continue your print without anything being interrupted. And that is extremely, extremely useful. We're now outputting at 60 watts right now, so it is less than half of what it was in the very beginning. As we go through the leveling procedure, and it's going to clean the nozzle and then, just continue to do its thing. Now, if you were to decide to do something like this outdoors, then it is highly, highly recommended that you print with some type of filament that's not as hygroscopic. PLA is going to be your best bet, especially if you live in humid environments like where I am here in Georgia right now. The humidity level is about 74% outside. And even though it's not hot, you will start sweating because it is quite humid out here. So trying to use something like PETG or, God forbid, TPU is not going to be a very good idea to try to do outdoors, because those things will just absorb this moisture really, really quickly, unless you are also running a filament dry box or something like that, which you can plug into this and you can run the filament dryer and the printer at the exact same time. But depending on how much wattage that uses, you won't get as much battery life out of the unit as a whole, but you can still do it. And we are running an output of 64 watts. 64 watts of power running this print on the very first layers. That's not a whole lot. Like I said, 100 watts will get us 25 hours of power. So 65 watts, that'll get us more than that. This particular print is going to take about 18 minutes to finish, so it is not that long. We were at 99% on the Jackery when we started, and we'll see what we end up with in the end. And while this continues to do its thing, I guess I'll just tell you a little story. So I've had this unit for a little while now, and here in Georgia, we experienced a pretty significant drought. Pretty much everywhere. Everything was red. There were burn bans in place. We weren't really getting any rain at all. But then we started getting a lot of rain. It was raining a lot when it did rain, and there was flooding, and we needed it. It was good, but the flooding still caused problems. Around here, a tree had fallen onto a power line. It knocked out the power, and we didn't have any power for about 5 or 6 hours. but I was kind of excited because I had this unit. So what I did was I brought it into the living room and I plugged in my router, of course, with the modem so that I can reclaim the internet, and had a big lamp downstairs and I plugged the lamp in so there was light. I was able to keep my phone charged and I could charge my tablet. My wife plugged a toaster into it to make toast for one of the kids, and I had no idea that a toaster drew so much wattage. It was like 500 or 600 watts of power that toaster was drawing. So throughout that entire time, it was still a relatively low load that was going into the Jackery with the things I had plugged into it. But it made that whole power outage situation so much more enjoyable because I didn't have to worry about entertaining myself because I still had the internet, and most people around probably didn't because they did not have power. I still had ample light. I could do anything that I wanted to do as long as it could be plugged into something. You can even plug my fridge into this if I wanted to, and that's also very possible. But when it just comes to 3D printing, hey, you could 3D print something while you wait with your power out because you see that it's not drawing that much power. So if you just need it to just get off a print real quick, you can do that. You can totally do that. And it's just humming along here, making this carabiner for us. And this unit is super quiet. I don't hear it at all out here. I have heard the fan kick in once before. It kicked on for, I don't know, maybe about 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and then it just went away. So I guess it just had to cool itself for a moment, and then everything was fine right after that. But it's just been a really awesome thing to just have lying around so that if I do need power really quick because something has happened, then I know that I got this to back me up. All right, so this is done. It took 21 minutes, and then over on the Jackery, we are at 98%, and at its current remaining battery power, at zero output, it's 71.2 hours. But as this was going on, it did have it sitting at around 26 to 27 hours is what the estimation was, if it just kept going at that level. So yeah, let's take this carabiner off and just see how it did. So the way that this carabiner works, once it just sort of breaks free from its slot, you just put whatever you're going to put in there and then just close it right back up inside of the slot. Also looked up the price for this, and currently it's on sale. So the HomePower 3600 Plus is going to cost $1,424 when it's on sale. So like I said, you can just see what the latest price is. But yeah, this print turned out pretty good. It could be useful in a pinch. But like I said, since this is PLA, and you'll be printing outdoors, if it's hot, if it's humid, you have to be prepared for something like this to either start to warp or lose its properties if it's supposed to like stick into itself or something like that, but just like I said, something in a pinch out of PLA outdoors when it's hot. If it's going to be functional, then you have a very limited amount of time to use it at its full integrity. But if it's not something that is functional and needs to like move around, but something that just has to be static, then you got more time to work with it. But this works perfectly fine, and I've got a ton of battery power left, so you can just print out a whole bunch of stuff at the same time and you'll still have enough power to power whatever else that you want to have in here. So this is definitely going to be a good investment for you because you just never know what's going to happen. Weather is getting crazier and crazier by the day, and it's good to have that backup. So I know it's pricey. It certainly is pricey, but this is something that is considered a long-term investment. So yeah, thank you, Jackery, for sending this out to me, and I'm going to pack this up, take it back into the house, get it back up to 100% charged, and it will await its next order. So I want to thank you all so much for watching. Till next time, take care of yourselves, and I'll speak to you soon.